This is the sew along for the Greenstyle Vapor Vest and Jacket. In this tutorial, I will be sewing the blocked jacket with a collar. We'll be using zippers for the welt pockets. In the back is a functional vent and elasticated wrist cuffs. For the blocked view, cut 2 B1 front upper blocked bodices mirrored, 2 B2 front blocked shoulders mirrored, 2 B3 front lower blocked bodices mirrored. Be sure to mark all notches on the arm side and the outlines for the welt pockets. For the functional vent back, cut 1 B9 upper back blocked bodice for mesh insert on the fold, cut 1 B10 lower back blocked bodice for the mesh insert on the fold, and 2 B5 back blocked shoulder pieces mirrored. Mark notches for the vent, cut 1 B6 back vent on the fold and 1 C1 back vent facing on the fold. Cut 2 sleeves mirrored, marking notches along the arm side. Mark the location of the grommet if choosing to use it. And I'll be using the narrow cuff facing S6, cut 2. Cut 2 collars C7. For the high hip view, cut 2 C3 front high hip facings mirrored and cut 1 C4 back high hip facing on the fold. For the pockets, cut 1 P1 upper bodice welt pocket front and 1 P2 upper bodice welt pocket back. Cut 2 P3 lower bodice welt pocket fronts and 2 P4 lower bodice welt pocket backs. Be sure to mark the welt pocket windows on the back side of your pocket fronts. For knit interfacing, cut 2 1" by 4" strips for the outer collar and 1 C7 collar for the inner collar. Cut 2 strips 1/2 inch by the bodice length and cut 3 6 1/4 by 1 1/4 strips of interfacing for the welt pockets. Supplies required for the vapor include 1 separating zipper, 3 7" number 3 non-separating zippers, optionally twill tape to conceal the zipper, elastic cording for the gathering back, hood, or wrist if desired, barrel locks for the elastic cording, optional grommets, thread, pressure tape to help with the insertion of zippers, and washable marker and/or chalk. For the welt pockets, be sure that you have the welt pocket windows marked on the right side of your pattern pieces. Iron fusible interfacing to the wrong side of the as transferred from the pattern. The upper pocket will be on the left side only as worn. Place welt pocket fronts right sides together on the bodice, aligning at the windows of welt pockets. Ensure that welt pocket fronts align on either side of the bodice. Stitch around the perimeter of the welt pocket markings, ensuring sharp 90-degree angle corners. Repeat for all pockets. Draw a line down the center of the welt pocket windows, stopping 3/8 inch from the end of the rectangle. Draw lines out to the corners of the pockets. Cut along the lines, careful not to clip the stitching in the corner. Fold the pocket fronts through the cut opening to the wrong side of the bodice. The welt pocket front should extend past the center line of the jacket. The pattern offers two styles of welt pockets. I will be using a double fold welt pocket style. As such, fold both sides of the pocket 3/8 inch to the center of the middle welt pocket window. Press these folds well and baste the folds at the top and bottom of the pocket fronts, catching only the pockets and not the bodice pieces, if desired. Top stitch around the perimeter of your pocket with a 1/8 inch seam allowance. You will be catching the pocket front on the wrong side. Go slowly to ensure that your lines are nice and crisp with a 90-degree edge at the corner. If including zippers to your welt pockets, pressure tape can be very helpful to hold the zipper steady. Place the zipper pull side down, centered on the welt pocket opening. The zipper pull should be at the top of the pocket opening. The zipper tape can extend past the welt pocket length. For a number 3 zipper, stitch in the ditch of the welt pocket flaps to ensure that the zipper is caught on the wrong side. Place welt pocket backings on top of corresponding pockets. Folding the bodice pieces out of the way, sew around the perimeter of the pockets. It may be necessary to finish the edges with a serger or similar stitch. Note, the pockets are designed to align with the center front of the bodice where the zipper will be later installed. For thicker fabrics, it may be necessary to narrow the pockets so the pocket is not sewn down when installing the zipper. You do want it to be caught when the zipper is top stitched. For the blocked vest and jacket assembly, place the front blocked shoulder B2 right side down on the front upper blocked bodice B1. Sew with a 3/8 inch seam allowance and repeat on the other side. For my make, I will be sewing all 3/8 inch seam allowances with a straight stitch and then finishing the edge with a serger. You can choose to use your preferred method for seams. Place the lower front blocked bodice B3 right side together on the assembled front upper bodice. So again with a 3/8 inch seam allowance, finishing as desired using a stretch stitch or a serger. Repeat on the other side. And top stitch as desired. If making the functional vent with a mesh upper back, place the upper back blocked bodice for the mesh insert B9 right sides together with the lower blocked bodice for mesh insert B10 pin along the curve, and sew with a 3/8 inch seam allowance, finishing as desired. Flip up the upper mesh as worn, press, and top stitch as desired. For the optional vent, finish the vent facing C1 as desired along the shorter upper curve. You can choose to finish by serging, using twill tape, or pressing 3/8 inch to the wrong side. Place the vent facing C1 right side together on back vent B6, aligning along the long bottom edge. So with a 3/8 inch seam allowance. It can be a good idea to clip the curve in multiple locations so that your vent facing sits flat. Press the vent facing to the wrong side and top stitch along the finished edge. Place the assembled vent right side up on the assembled back bodice, based along the upper perimeter of the vent. Place the back blocked shoulder pieces B5 right side together on top of the assembled back bodice. So with a 3/8 inch seam allowance, using a stretch stitch or serger, finishing as desired. Top stitch with the seam facing towards the bottom of the bodice. Place the assembled front and back bodices right sides together at the shoulder seam. Pin and sew with a 3/8 inch seam allowance, finishing as desired. If choosing to top stitch, press the seam allowance to the back and top stitch. If you are choosing to install the optional grommets, do so before installing the sleeves. The Greenstyle YouTube page has a full-length video for how to install grommets. The Vapor Jacket has two options for installing cuffs and sleeves. Because my fabric is thinner and I'm using the narrow sleeve cuff, I'm going to use option 1, installing the sleeve first, and then sewing on the cuff once the sleeve has been fully constructed. Place the sleeve S1 right sides together with the bodice arm side aligning at the notches. Sew along the arm side curve with a 3/8 inch seam allowance, finishing as desired. Repeat on the other sleeve. Place the front and back bodice and sleeves right sides together, aligning at the sleeves and side seams. Sew up the sleeve and down the length of the side seam with a 3/8 inch seam allowance. At this point, it's recommended to do a fit check to see if the bodice needs to be narrowed any for personal preference or if the sleeves need to be shortened. Finish the longer raw edge of the cuff S6 as desired. Fold in half, right sides together along the short edge, and sew the shorter edge together with a 3/8 inch seam allowance. Turn the assembled jacket right side out and place the assembled cuff right sides together around the sleeve, aligning at the inner seam and raw edges. Sew with a 3/8 inch seam allowance. There are multiple styles and options for barrel locks. I am using a single barrel and have simply tied a knot into the cording. Elastic cording should run the entire circumference of the wrist, crossing the pieces over, top stitch and stitch in the ditch on the inner seam of the cuff facing. Turn the cuff facing in as worn and top stitch the cuff facing along the finished edge, being sure not to catch the cording. It is suggested to sew from inside of the sleeve due to the narrow cuff opening. Place front hip facing right side together with the back hip facing. Align at the side seams and sew with a 3/8 inch seam allowance using a straight stitch to reduce bulk. Finish the shorter top edge of the assembled hem facing as desired. Place the assembled hem facing right sides together with the assembled bodice aligning at the long raw edge. Sew with a 3/8 inch seam allowance using a straight stitch. Using a walking foot can be helpful with stretchier fabrics. Press thin strips of interfacing to the wrong side of the assembled bodice center line. Depending on the thickness of your fabric, you may want to move the pocket out of the way for this step so it does not get sewn down with the first pass of the zipper. Interface the collars. Depending on the weight of your fabric, it may be necessary to fully interface both the inner and outer collar. If only interfacing one collar fully, do so to the inner collar and press interfacing pieces to the outer collar. Finish the long edge of the inner collar as desired. Place the longer edge of the outer collar right sides together around the bodice neckline. Be sure to align at center front. Sew with a 3/8 inch seam allowance using a straight stitch or stretch stitch depending on your fabric. Separate the zipper and shorten the zipper tape if needed. Turn the collar up and the hem facing down. Place the zipper right side down, aligning the edge of the zipper tape to the front center bodice edge. The zipper stop will be aligned at the bottom seam of the bodice hem and the front hem facing, and zipper teeth will need to stop 1/2 inch from the top of the collar. Use pressure tape or pins to hold the zipper in place. Turn excess zipper tape at the top of the zipper towards the center of the jacket. Sew down the length of the zipper with a 3.0 stitch length, approximately 3/8 inch from the zipper teeth. Before sewing down the other side of the zipper, it's important to make sure that your landmarks align. So on the vapor vest, you have the center blocked piece and the collar piece. Ensure that both sides of your zipper, when zipped up, will align at those landmarks. If using twill tape or bias tape to conceal a zipper edge, place the tape along the length of the zipper. The twill tape needs to extend past the collar seam at the top of the jacket and below the hem facing seam line at the bottom. The twill tape will need to extend approximately 1/8 to 1/4 inch past the edge of the zipper tape at the center line. Edge stitch along the twill tape right on top of the stitch line you just used to sew down your first pass of the zipper. Place the inner interfaced collar right sides together over the outer collar. Make sure the finished edge of the inner collar is turned up towards the top of the jacket. Sew up one side of the zipper around the neck and down the other side of the zipper using a 3/8 inch seam allowance and a straight stitch. Cut the inner collar edge at a 45-degree angle, being sure not to cut the stitch line. Turn the hem facing up, right sides together, sandwiching the zipper in between. Sew up the length of the hem facing at a 3/8 inch seam allowance. Turn the collar and zipper right side out as worn, and turn the hem facing to the inside, wrong sides together. Pin in multiple locations around the jacket hem. If you're using a twill tape or just doing a simple turned zipper top stitch, you will want to make sure to catch the pocket in your top stitch line to secure it in place. Top stitch down the length of the zipper using a 1/4 to 3/8 inch top stitching seam allowance. Be sure to catch the zipper tape or twill tape on the wrong side. For the high hip view, you will catch a very small amount of the bottom of your pocket in your top stitching line. Top stitch down the length of the zipper using a 1/4 to 3/8 inch seam allowance. Be sure to catch the zipper tape or twill tape on the wrong side of the jacket. Top stitch the inner collar to the bodice as desired using a machine or hand stitch. Pressure tape can be helpful to hold the collar in place while stitching. Finish pinning the hem facing to the wrong side of the jacket, and top stitch the length of the hem facing along the inside finished edge with a straight stitch. For fabrics with more stretch, a walking foot can be helpful. And with that, you have completed your Greenstyle Vapor Vest or Jacket. Please share your make on social media using the hashtag GSVapor and be sure to tag Greenstyle Creations. Happy sewing, friends!